Jai Bhim, Jai Mulnivasi, Jai Savidhan, Jai Bharat. Welcome you all once again to MNT News Network. Today is Sunday, and today we are going to discuss a very important topic. So be with us, and this is a live program. And every Sunday, as of you know, we are taking different topics, relevant topics in that particular period, so that our viewers can get the information that is prevailing in that particular period. So today, as all of you know, this is the month of September, and 24th September is one particular very important date and very historical date. And on this particular date, as we know, 24th September 1873, Mahatma Jotiba Phule ji, Rashtrapita Jotiba Phule ji, he has started Satyashodhak Samaj. And this year it will be 150 years of celebration of this establishment of this Samaj. So this is a very, very historical event. And we thought of taking this topic in advance so that our viewers and most of the social media will get note of this particular event, and a discussion and a milestone achievement of this particular event can be discussed in the social media. So this video will be there live on Facebook as well as Twitter, and also on Facebook. So you all are requested to share the link of this particular video to all the people you know in your social media, so that they will get the very important information on this particular topic. Today we are going to discuss about 150 years of Satyashodhak Samaj and Rashtrapita Jotiba Phule ji. And today we had with us Mangesh Dahiwale ji, who is Ambedkarite, Buddhist and writer, and he's also a social activist and successfully sparing his time for the social movement. So it is a great event, and we are delighted to have with him. So without wasting more time, I would like to welcome Mangesh Dahiwale ji to our studio. Sir, Jai Bhim, Jai Mulnivasi, Namo Buddhaya.
Jai Bhim Bhau.
And welcome to MNT News Network. So as today's topic is considered that we are celebrating almost 150 years of the formation of Satyashodhak movement, which was a very historical movement started by Jotiba Phule ji. And this particular event had created its own importance during that particular phase of 1873, which was a very, very crucial period. So our viewers would like to know more on this particular aspect of the formation of Satyashodhak Samaj, and what has happened after that, and till date, what is the impact, and how it has got converted into the today's social movement, which we called as a Bahujan movement. So please elaborate more on this particular topic of this entire period of 150 years of Satyashodhak Samaj. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Bhau. Jai Bhim, Jai Jyoti, Jai Mulnivasi. And this is a very important topic that not only us, but the whole country should be discussing. The 150 years of the formation of what is now known as the Bahujan movement, with the formation of Satyashodhak Samaj on 24 September 1873. And the Satyashodhak movement was needed that time. It is even needed today, and we are going to look at the history of how the Satyashodhak movement or non-Brahman movement came into being, and how it unfolded in terms of the democratic movement that we all are beneficiaries of. All the Indians are beneficiaries of. So what I thought, by the way of making my topic easy to deliver, because there are a lot of things, a lot of terms, a lot of concepts that I'm going to talk about today, and a lot of history. What I thought that I would present to you 30 or 40 minutes of a presentation which I've prepared on this occasion, and I will take the readers through it. At the end of that, we can discuss whatever there is. So the topic today is about 150 years of the Satyashodhak Samaj and truth seekers movement, or what is called the truth seeking society. Very important word, because we can interpret the Satyashodhak Samaj in terms of the truth seekers or truth seeking society. Two ways we can interpret it. And its formation on 24 September 1873, and Rashtrapita Jotiba Phule. So by the way of presentation, what I thought is I would give you some idea as to what I'm going to present today. So I'm going to present the background of the Satyashodhak movement in terms of what is called or what is known in the scholarly circle as the Marathi Dharma. And Marathi Dharma is a very critical concept that we need to understand, because 500 years back there was nothing like Hinduism. There was nothing like Hindus Dharma. There was what is called the Marathi Dharma in the Marathi speaking area, and it was like an offshoot of an all India network of enlightened revolutionary saints, and a quest for the equal and free and harmonious society that they all fought for. And spearheading that movement, we know the luminaries like Kabir, we know the luminaries like Eknath Maharaj, we know a luminary like Namdev and Tukaram. They were so revolutionary thinkers and saints of the time that they, in a way, transformed the social milieu of the time. And that would be I'm going to cover that the background to the what is called the Satyashodhak Samaj, and then I'm going to come to what is called the topic of from Shivaji Maharaj to Shahu Maharaj via victory at the Bhima Koregaon in 1818, and how the Brahman and the Shudra conflict was inbuilt into the Bhima Koregaon battle. And then I'm going to talk about the emergence of Jotiba Phule, his great disciple Baba Saheb Ambedkar, its impact on the Dravidian movement and eventual success of the Dravidian model of development. Then I'm going to touch briefly upon where is the movement today. So I'm without taking much time, I'm going to move further. So the Marathi Dharma is considered to be the part of the Santa Dharma, and the Sant Dharma is a very important figure or term that we need to bear in mind, because before there was any sort of religion like Hinduism, there was this religion called the Santa Dharma, and it was influenced by none other than the great Siddha Saraha, who was from Vidarbha, and he studied in Nalanda University, and he founded what is called the Santa tradition or Santa Parampara. And he was, of course, a Buddhist monk, and then later on he gave up the monkhood and he became the popular poet of that time, giving rise to the forms of poetry which we know today as Doha. And it was a widespread movement. It spread all over the places, and the core of this movement was the enlightenment and the freedom of mind. And Eknath and Namdev were the key figures throughout the Indian subcontinent, not only in the Marathi speaking area, because we know that in the Adi Dharma, the first sort of the anthology of the Sant Vani that we see transforming into the Sikh religion, has the gathas or the poetry of Namdev and Eknath in Hindi, and later on translated into Punjabi and so on and so forth. So they were very powerful people of the time. And Tukaram Maharaj, we know him as a Maharaj, but he was a very rebellious, enlightened human being who considered himself to be the disciple of Namadev. And now about Tukaram, the most important thing about Tukaram is this, that he came from what is called the agrarian family of Kunbis. And the word Kunbi is very controversial these days, because the word is in discussion. So we have to know the historicity of the word, the Kunbi. And the Kunbi word has to do with agriculture. And he came from the Kunbi community, agricultural background, and he was very proud of himself to declare himself as a Kunbi. And he paved a way. His social revolution and cultural revolution paved a way for Shivaji's political revolution, which is evident in the history of a country. And historically, Shivaji Maharaj was so greatly influenced by Tukaram that he went to Logao in Pune to meet the great Jagat Guru Tukaram Maharaj, and he was even inclined to stay with him, but Jijabai intervened, and she requested Jagat Guru Tukaram Maharaj to let him go and handle the government. So such was the deep impact of Tukaram Maharaj on Shivaji Maharaj. So this is very important background that we have to understand. The Nata Sampradaya Parampara and Santa Parampara, Santa Dharma, from there emerging Eknath, Namdev, Tukaram, influencing a social and cultural revolution which paved the way for Shivaji's political revolution. And it's very interesting to see how Shivaji Maharaj emerged from Kunbi. The Brahmins called him the Shudras, and the Shudra is a misnomer because the majority of the Indians cannot be Shudras. It's in the Brahminical connotations that the people are Shudras, but in their own day-to-day life they were not Shudras. So Shivaji's emergence from a Kunbi Shudra to Chhatrapati is a very interesting journey. And here I am shown a map of the empire of the great Shivaji Maharaj. So Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj, Shivaji Bhosle, founded the empire with the help of agrarian classes and the working classes. So not only the Kunbis, but also the Dangars and the Malis and the Shadis and all this, what we call the Bahujan Samaj today, they were the part and the parcel of the formation of what is called the Hindavi Swaraj. And all the communities which took part in the agriculture were termed as the Kunbis. It also included fishermen if they took up the agriculture, and included Madis and Sadis and Dangars and so on and so forth. So the term Maratha we have to understand very clearly and carefully as a blanket term which was used for those who spoke Marathi language. So Maratha is a linguistic term. So when the Marathi Empire was extended far and wide, the word Maratha began to emerge as a separate class, mainly from those who came from the agricultural related castes and working classes and fought military battles as well. The word Maratha does not occur much in frequency in the early historical sources. So if you look at the early historical sources at the time of Shivaji Maharaj, we do not find this word Maratha. And even if it is used, it's used in terms of the language. The Brahmins refused to accept Shivaji Maharaj as the Chhatrapati, claiming that he is a Shudra Kunbi. So that's a long story, to cut it short. We know the story that, Shivaji Maharaj wanted to declare himself as a Chhatrapati, the holder of the umbrella, and he wanted to have his coronation, Rajyabhishek. But that was denied to him by the Brahmins, claiming that, he is not a pure Kshatriya, he is a Shudra. And we know the story that, how they had to find his genealogy in the Sisode family of Udaipur, and that's how Shivaji Maharaj got coronated. And there was an ongoing tension from the time of Shivaji Maharaj between the Marathas. That time there was no strong category of Marathas, but the Bahujan Samaj or the Kunbis and the other allied caste with the Brahmins. So we know that the Maratha Empire then extended, to the large empire, as you can see from this map. It reached all the way, touched Afghanistan itself, and Gujarat, and Kashmir nearby, and it encompassed the very large sort of a territory. So we find the use of the word, if we look at the Bakhars, which were sort of the historical record, and Sabasat Bakhar is a very important Bakhar from which we get a lot of references, and 17th 18th century onwards we begin to get the increasing use of the word Maratha in the 19th century, and two meanings of Marathas in Bakhars, which are the historical documents. One is Marathi speaking person, and the second is small circle of allied families claiming Kshatriya status opposing the Brahmins. And the trade of the Marathas was considered to be Ganimikawa, guerrilla warfare, and the tradition of military power became the essential part of the Maratha culture. So, it was considered that, wherever you come from, if you speak Marathi language, and if you are ready to fight, to be Maratha was to fight. So that's how the category or the designation of Maratha came into being. And we know that from Kunbi to Maratha in opposition to Brahmanism, and we can trace it very clearly as to, the majority of the people were not called the Marathas, they were Kunbis or the land owning or the agricultural communities, and the allied Marathi speaking fighters wanted to prove that they are the Kshatriyas. Kunbis were very happy to call themselves okay with Shudra designation. 96 kulas, which are very famous in Maharashtra, considered to be pure Marathi. It's very difficult to establish. The list is very difficult to establish. This is what the scholars have been exploring. And if the Kunbis prospered, they were becoming the Marathas, as this phrase in Marathi goes, Kunbi Mazla, Marathi Zala. And there is a term called Maratha Mola. So, there the emergence of a person who can be called the Maratha. And as I reiterated in the past slide, that there was a tension between the Brahmins and the Marathas over pure Kshatriya Varna. So when we are talking about the Bhosles as the great Maratha family, the question arises: who were the Holkars, the Shindes, and of course the Gaikwads, who became very famous in the history of the country. So we are going to look at all these questions, and but before we look into these questions, it's very important that the Maratha Empire got declined after the death of Shivaji Maharaj in 1680, and the power slipped out of Maratha hands and it went into the hands of the Brahman Peshwas. And that's a different story which I'm not going to get into. But end of the 18th century, the Raja Shahu II of Satara was only a Chhatrapati in formality and was confined by the Peshwas. And the rule of the Brahman Peshwas was closed, orthodox, and it favored caste society. Bajirao too supported Brahminical advancement, and Bajirao too. Please keep this name in mind. Bajirao too was in alliance with the British first. He was in alliance with the British first, and he tried to block the Maratha alliance because the Marathas at the time were trying to ally, pull their all the forces together throughout the country to fight the British. But Bajirao Peshwa too was siding with the British, and he destroyed the alliance which was to form of the Maratha, Sardars, and it couldn't form. So what happened in the history was this: that the Maharaja of Satara, and the Bhosles, they went with the British, and the battle was fought in what is now known as the Battle of Bhima Koregaon, where the 500 odd, the combination majorly of Mahars and the Marathas destroyed the army of the Brahmins in Bhima Koregaon. And what happened in the East India Company was there, defeated Bajirao II in 1818, thus ending the Brahmin rule of the Peshwas. And the Peshwaship was the office of the chief minister of the Maharaja of Satara, which went against the Maharajas. The Peshwas went against the Maharajas. Pratap Singh Bhosle, very important name in the history of Maharashtra, the descendant of Shivaji Bhosle, was installed on the Gadi of Satara after Bhima Koregaon battle. So that's the history. That's how the Marathas, or the descendants of Shivaji, came to power after the battle of Bhima Koregaon. And we know history that the Mahars fought that battle and won the battle against the Brahman Peshwas. So Pratap Singh Bhosle was on the Gadi from 1818 after the battle of Bhima Koregaon, and he ruled up till 1839. And there was a constant enmity between the Marathas and the Brahmins. And the Brahmins did not recognize the Marathas, the Kulwadis or Kumbis, and others as the legitimate rulers, as they were not considered to be the pure Kshatriyas. So that has been going on. Even it started at the time of the of Shivaji Maharaj. It was going on all the way up to Shahu Maharaj. And that's what we are going to see. So the assertive Marathaness and its contradictions. So we are going to look into that. So in 1830, the Marathas won the case of being Kshatriya. The Bombay High Court declared that the Marathas are the Kshatriyas. And Pratap Singh Bhosle coronated himself in 1837 in the line of Shivaji. So the great coronation ceremony was organized, and Pratap Singh Bhosle became the Chhatrapati. And Pratap Singh Bhosle refused to accept the other Maharajas of the other Maratha kingdom as the Marathas. He used to call the other Maharajas as the Kunbis, as not up to the mark of a Maratha. And this is his photograph. And here, in after his death in 1851, his wife started a school in Satara, because that's where his Gadi was. That's where his seat of empire was. And there is a historical coincidence that Baba Saheb Ambedkar studied in that high school, Pratap Singh Bhosle High School, for 4 years in Satara. So I just wanted to give some kind of historical linkages. And you see there is a great contradiction. So we are in 2023, and even today our brothers from the Marathas communities are fighting for reservation in the services and educational institutions, claiming social and educational backwardness. So the battle for this rights, the battle for equality has been ongoing for a long time. The battle for recognition has been going for a long time. So Why I related this story to you? Because I wanted to bring to you something very important, that when Mahatma Jyotiba Phule emerged, he didn't emerge out of vacuum. There was an entire, story of a revolution and counter revolution that was going on in Maharashtra, and Lokhitvadi Deshmukh has proved that the rule of the British was far better than the rule of the Brahmins, because they provided a lot of opportunity to the backward classes. And the Maratha rulers knew that the foreigners cannot rule forever. They are here to stay for some time and they have to go. They cannot rule the country forever. And the non-Brahman movement developed out of real struggle with the Brahmins. That's the crux of the matter which I wanted to arrive. And Brahmins in the British government were exploitative. So a lot of people, because they have the advantage of education of the time, the lot of people in the service of the Peshwas, the Brahmins, the Chitpan Brahmins joined what we can call the British government, and they were very exploitative. So we see this is the dynamic situation in Maharashtra where Jyotiba Phule emerged. He was born 9 years after the Battle of Bhima Koregaon in 1827. So that was a very vibrant period of the history, particularly in the Western India, where the missionaries were very active. They were having their newspaper like Nanoday, and huge churning in was going on. Intellectual churning was going on, and Jyotiba Phule was, of course, was a part of that intellectual renaissance, and he's considered to be a father figure of Indian Renaissance, the Indian awakening. So his basic values, like Baba Sahib's values or the values of the Constitution of India, were the values of liberty, equality, and fraternity. And Phule Sahib himself says that these are his values: liberty, equality, and fraternity. And they were taken from the French Revolution, and Jyotiba Phule was inspired by the democratic revolution that took place in America and in the France. And these two important books had a deep impact on Jyotiba Phule: The Age of Reason and Investigation. And it was considered to be a very important book written by Thomas Penn. And he says here, true and fabulous theology. So theology is, of course, about the gods and the religion and so on and so forth. But we know that the Thomas Paine was not inclined towards Christianity or any theistic religion. And they wanted to have the free inquiry. They wanted to reason with everything. And that's why we see that in the life of Jyotiba Phule, that he was a mind which was very inquisitive, with a very inquiring mind. And of course, The Rights of Man, which was written in response to Edmund Burke, to support the French Revolution by Thomas Penn. And that was another book that influenced Jyotiba Phule. And of course, there is this very interesting book which was written by a lady about exposing the plights of the American blacks, Uncle Tom's Cabin, which Jyotiba Phule has read and had impact. So he was also affected by the egalitarian tradition of the sons. Kabir, Tukaram, they were very influential sort of the sons who had an impact on Jyotiba Phule. And he has cultivated his rationalism and scientific temper, and he was in a constant touch with the Western Christian missions, like American missions and Scottish missions. They were proliferating all over the places in India at the time, and they were aiming at doing a lot of humanitarian work. So just to go further, is what were the strategies by which Jyotiba Phule wanted to create a society based on liberty, equality, and fraternity? He was not in support of violence, and I'm going to look at that briefly as to how he was one of the great man who practiced non-violence. So emancipation through education. We know his famous quote: "Without education, we cannot succeed." And then he was critical of all the social evils and Brahmanism, and establishment of the institution. That was his strategies, which he did successfully. And multifaceted fight for liberation of various oppressed communities like untouchables, Shudras, women, and religious minorities. Economic development. He was very particular about the development of the farmers, and he made pleas to the British government to give the rights and facilities to the farmers. And he himself had started a kind of a training institute on 400 acres of land in Pune. So there are a lot of points which are very important to understand about Mahatma Jyotiba Phule. and political mobilization. Of course, that time politics was not like what it is today, but there was a political mobilization through participation, raising issues, and political advocacy that Jotiba Phule used to do. And religious foundation of this. So very important that there is something religious about human being. And Jotiba emphasized that this society should have the religious foundation, which should be universal and humanitarian in nature, which we are going to look into in the in the in the in the in the presentation. Non-violent movement towards social democracy, isn't it? So he didn't side with the violence. And Balwant Phadke and Jotiba Phule, they were both disciples of Lahuji Mang, Lahuji Sadhve Mang, who was a master of Danpatra. There is a weapon that is used to fight, and both of them. But Phadke chose a violent path. Phule knew that the violent path is not going to lead anywhere, and he was never in support of violence. One of the important definitions that Jotiba Phule brought in is nationalism is nothing but representation. It's not just singing the tune of patriotism. It's about giving representation to all the communities. Very deep. And we know that one of his greatest strategy, which unfolded in the history, was the formation of what is called the Rainbow Alliance of the non-Brahmins and the exploited religious minorities. That's a key point in Jotiba's strategy. The topic today is about Satyashodhak Samaj, and Satyashodhak Samaj is, of course, about truth seeking, and this is the book which was published after Jotiba's death. And you see, this is the Sarvajanik Satya Dharma Pustak. This is the book of the universal truth-seeking religion. And if you notice it, on the top of that, what is written is Satyameva Jayate. So the truth, exploration of the truth, knowing as it is, which was coming from the Sun tradition, Sakshya, to witness something without biased mind, was a practice that was going on. And the Satyashodhak Samaj is the community of the truth seekers, and also it's the community that seeks the truth. So seeking truth has become a religious activity in the hands of Mahatma Jotiba Phule when he found this Satyashodhak Samaj, and it is in English called the universal true religion, Sarvajanik Satya Dharma. And he went beyond that, and he called that essence of the truth. We have to even find out the essence of the truth. So without getting lost in the terms, I'm going to move ahead. So Mahatma Jotiba Phule was one of the great gurus of Baba Saheb Ambedkar, and the Mahatma title was bestowed upon Mahatma Jotiba Phule in 1818 for his work with the untouchables community. A very important historical fact. And Lahuji Mang was Jotiba's teacher of Danpatta, as I have mentioned. Jotiba lectured all over Pune among the Mahars. So Jotiba went from one vasti to another vasti to talk about the rights, to talk about the non-Brahman movement, and that's how the Mahars listened to him. And one of the Satyashodhak, Gopal Baba Valankar, and a very famous man, Ramji Sakpal, were both Satyashodhak. And Jotiba influenced young Sayajirao Maharaj and instilled him in the spirit of social revolution. So we can see when Jotiba Phule and Sayajirao, young Sayajirao met, a lot of things transpired between them. And Sayajirao Gaikwad stopped giving khichdi, free meals, to the Brahmins after meeting Jotiba Phule. And Dada Kiruskar, the friend of both Jotiba and Ramji, became the mentor of young Bhimrao and instilled in him the values of Satyashodhan, truth-seeking, and introduced him to Buddha, Tukaram, Shivaji, and Phule. And we see that the thoughts and the mission of Baba Saheb and Jotiba, they are not in contradiction. They are in coherence with each other. So Dr. Baba Saheb Ambedkar and the non-Brahman movement, very important to understand. Krishnaji, Arjun Keluskar, and C.K. Bhole, both were non-Marathas. They were coming from the Bhandari caste. And both the leaders and workers of the Satyashodhak Samaj felicitated young Bhimrao in 1907 for passing matriculation. Ramji Sakpal and other Mahar leaders were influenced by Satyashodhak Samaj and Mahatma Jotiba Phule. And this is what I have emphasized. And the last point is about Shahu Maharaj. He was also very much taken over by the Satyashodhak Samaj. I put this 1910 photograph deliberately here. This is from Baroda, where Sayajirao Maharaj installed the statue of the Buddha in 1910. long before he was publishing the Buddhist books. And the book that Baba Sahib Ambedkar read in 1907, which was written by uh, Dadaji Keluskar, was published by the Baroda Oriental series, the printing press that was established by Maharaja of Baroda, Sayajirao Maharaj. See, a lot of things tie up together when we look at the history of the movement. And one of the greatest figure that has emerged is Shahu Maharaj. So while Sayajirao Maharaj helped Bhimrao with his education, Shahu Maharaj declared Bhimrao Ambedkar as the future leader of not only Bahujan Samaj but India. And this is on 23rd June 1923 20. Shahu Maharaj wrote a letter to his friend Sir Alfred Pease introducing Baba Sahib Ambedkar, and this is very significant, very historical, and very significant. He, Dr. Ambedkar, will explain you difference between the backward classes and the Brahmin bureaucracy. In asking for the home rule, the real object of the Brahmins has been to regain and establish their long lost power. Dr. Ambedkar will explain the point of view of non-Brahmin Hindus. So Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar is declared by Shahu Maharaj as the leader of the non-Brahmin Hindus. And you see, there is a very interesting Prakaran episode in the life of Shahu Maharaj, that he was denied the rights based on the Vedokta episode. And he was so furious. But the roots of that enmity between the Marathas or the Kunbis and the Brahmins is long back. It dates back to the empire of Shivaji, and it unfolded in Shahu Maharaj's life. And he was very furious, and he was rebellious, and he wanted to destroy the hegemony of the Brahmins. So this is the gadget of 26 July 1902, where Maharaja gave the reservation. A very historical document, isn't it? So the history of reservation can be traced to the non-Brahmin movement. So we all owe great debt to these great men and women. So in 1928, Keluskar Guruji, Prabodhankar Thakre, Baba Bode, C.K. Bode invited Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar to Ganesh festival to challenge the practice of untouchability. Why I am naming these names? Because they are very important for the history. Keluskar Guruji, forgotten figure, but he was a revolutionary man. He did so much for the non-Brahmin movement. Prabodhankar Thakre, Kayastha, another non-Brahmin, non-Maratha, who contributed so much. C.K. Bhole, he was such a devoted to the non-Brahmin movement. And this is very interesting that Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar won the court case for the Satyashodhaks, Jede and Javalkar, when they accused Tilak as the enemy of the nation. And Babasaheb Ambedkar fought the case and he won. Now, the quest of Bahujan Samaj is, halted here because in 1929, there was a conflict that emerged in Maharashtra within the Satyashodhak movement as Maratha and non-Maratha Satyashodhaks. So we even still see today that the Satyashodhaks were divided into two groups, the Marathas and the non-Maratha Satyashodhaks. The non-Brahmin movement split into two, Maratha and non-Maratha. The meeting to resolve the conflict was conducted in the second week of March 1929. And it's a very interesting historical fact, that Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar was a member of the committee constituted to resolve the conflict between the Marathas and the non-Maratha Satyashodhaks. But it failed. They separated. And the Marathas and non-Maratha conflict within the non-Brahmin movement could not be resolved. But C.K. Bhode, who was coming from the Bhandari caste, he joined Independent Labour Party and he was with Babasaheb Ambedkar for a long time. Now, the quest of Bahujan Samaj, we as I was telling you that there is a lot of things in the history of the Satyashodhak movement. On 5th March 1947, Prabodhankar Thakre published in his newspaper that the great intellectual of Maharashtra, Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar, is writing a thesis, a biography on Jotiba Phule, and intend to publish all his work. And they were appealing, Babasaheb Ambedkar and Prabodhankar Thakre were appealing to the masses to provide them whatever material or information is available with them related to Jotiba Phule, because both realized the importance of Jotiba Phule for the time and for the country. And very important fact is mentioned in that appeal is this very interesting book called Jati Bheda Vivek Sar, which was considered to be written by a great Bhandari non-Maratha leader, Tatya Padwal, was in fact written by Mahatma Jotiba Phule. And this is a very important, interesting fact that we have to bear in mind. And we see the politics today that Prabodhankar Thackeray is completely forgotten. His views of the social revolution were derailed. And now people are talking about the two political forces aligning together in terms of the Bhima Shakti and Shiva Shakti. So what I'm trying to bring to you is that we have so much to learn from history, isn't it? The history offers us the template for decision making, and if we do not, as Baba Ambedkar says, learn from history, we cannot create the history. So history, when we are looking at the history of the 150 years of Satyashodhak Samaj, we have also bear in mind the present reality so that we can draw the lessons from the history and make the decisions. And this knowledge should reach to everybody, so that we can make the decisions in favor of the people or majority. To give you a reference, the Jati Bhed Vivek Sar had the content from a very important Buddhist book called Vajra Suchi, written by Ashok Ghosh, which offered a very strong critique of Brahmanism. Very important book. Vajra Suchi was referred here in Jati Bhed Vivek Sar. So just to come to the end of my presentation, Dr. Baba Ambedkar was the honest follower of Mahatma Jotiba Phule, and this is what he said in 1951 in Nashik. When our constitution was drafted, India became a democracy. Then Baba Ambedkar said these very important things, and we have to listen to them very carefully. I never felt ashamed to proclaim myself as the follower of Mahatma Jotiba Phule, either in the past or in the present. And we should not have any problem in claiming ourselves as the follower of Mahatma Jotiba Phule. I tell with full confidence that if there is anyone who has been associated to Jotiba with honesty, it's only me. So that's what Baba Ambedkar was. He was honest to his guru forever. And I'm certain, that's what Baba Sahib is saying, I'm certain that any party that comes to power, whatever be its name, and cares for the all-round development of the masses, it would have to follow Jotiba's visionary approach. So what is Jotiba's visionary approach? Ethical principles and philosophy to move forward. This is the only way to achieve democracy. This is the only way to achieve democracy. There is no other way to achieve democracy. What is the use of crying and making noise about freedom when more than 80% of the masses are denied access to education and kept so openly in a perpetual state of social, economic, and political slavery? Everyone must get the fruits of freedom. So Baba Ambedkar was, had he lived longer, he was in the process of writing the biography of Jotiba Phule, of Sayaji Rao Maharaj, so that to elucidate the great history that we have forgotten completely. Because as I said, that the history provides a template to make the decisions in the present, and we have to know the history. I'm just going to spend a few minutes here to talk about Periyar and non-Brahman movement, because if we see that how the success of the non-Brahman movement leads to the economic development, leads to the quality of life, leads to the overall development of a community. So when Tamil Nadu, if we take the example of Tamil Nadu, today Tamil Nadu's the human development indices, the health indices are comparable to the countries like Malaysia or Singapore. And why is this? So whenever we remove the autocratic or the minority rule, in case of Tamil Nadu, the supremacy of the Brahmins, when it was quashed, the state developed by leaps and bounds. So if our country is to develop economically, there is only one way, is to proliferate the thoughts of Phule, Baba Sahib, Shau, Shivaji, Periyar. There is no other way. There is no other way for the country if it has to become a powerful country, if it has to serve all the people. So this is the last slide that I wanted to bring to you, that, how we organize the Bahujan Samaj. A lot of contradictions there, as we witness it after 150 years. So the internal conflicts due to caste contradictions, as we have seen, there is a caste contradictions. So unless we build the social democracy, we cannot have the political democracy. We cannot have the what is called the economic democracy, because the social democracy or the cultural democracy paves the way for the political and the what is called the economic democracy. And we have a lack of understanding of the coherent evolution of the ideology to tackle the contradictions and emerging problems. So it's very important to have such kind of discussions where we begin to see the evolution of the ideology to tackle the emerging problems and the contradictions. So, for example, if we see it clearly throughout the Indian history, through the history of the revolution and counter-revolution, we can see Buddha, Sant Revolution, Phule Shah Ambedkar, and there is a need of transfer of power to Bahujan Samaj, and that will lead to democratic republic. The republic based on the liberty, equality, and fraternity, which is justice as enshrined in the constitution, the values so dear to Baba Sahib Ambedkar, the values so dear to Jotiba Phule. And we have to be able to counter the Vedism, Brahmanism, and the Brahman constructed Hinduism. Jotiba Phule declares that the Hinduism is the construction or the crafty, is the trickery or the machinery of the Brahmins. So Hinduism has been created as a category to fool the masses, and how that authoritarian Hindutva leads to authoritarianism, Nazism, and fascism. So there are these two trains that we have to choose. Where do we want to go? We want to go to the democratic republic, or we want to go towards more fascism and Nazism. And as a matter of fact, the Bahujan movement is scattered. The Bahujan social organizations must form the Rainbow Coalition. The great example is of BAMSEF. So BAMSEF is such a thing in the history of the Satyashodhak movement or the non-Brahmin movement, almost a revolutionary sort of a pivotal point in the history of India, where the lot of the vision or the strategies and the ideas of the great forefathers where we are formed into an organizational framework. And then we know that subsequently led to the formation of what is called the OBC Seva Sangha, which is a very important organization voicing for the rights of the OBCs, and then Maratha Seva Sangha. But we know that there are the internal contradictions, isn't it? There are a lot of internal contradictions. They were there in the history. They couldn't be resolved. That's why we reached to where we are, isn't it? If we listen to Shah Maharaj, all these problems of reservation will be gone, because he talked about the negative list. He said that reservation should be confined to those who have gone ahead. Give them 10%. Rest of the 90% open for everybody. Isn't it? There are a lot of these policy mechanisms that were thought out by our great forefathers. And if we go back to their ideologies, their thinking, we can derive a lot of strategies even for today. And of course, the political alliances, they are scattered. People talk in the name of Bahujan Samaj. For example, I was talking about Shiv Sena, for example. If we study Shiv Sena carefully, non-Maratha, non-Mahar castes, isn't it? It's a Bahujan Samaj party in a disguise. If we look into that, isn't it? So which is the electoral base of that party? So when we analyze like that, we see that the strategy of the BAMSEF, or which has been derived from what is called the strategies of Jotiba Phule, all the way going back to the foundation of Hindavi Swaraj, where the great Shivaji mobilized the Kunbis, the agricultural castes, and he led to the formation of the empire, which was eaten up by the Orthodox Brahmins, and we see that ebb and flow in the Indian history. So within the history of 500 years, we can see a lot of ebb and flow. So what about the political alliances today? To my mind, a lot of positive things are happening because people have been talking about a lot of things. People are articulating. They are challenging the very notion of what is called the Sanatan Dharma, and in open challenge, people are now challenging a lot of things. So there is the great background to the battle of democracy that is there, and we have to learn from these 150 years of the history of the Satyashodhak Samaj, Mahatma Jotiba Phule, so that we share our country into a truly democratic republic. So I think I have spoken a lot. I will stop here and hand it over to Ashish.
Thank you very much, Mangesh. You had very elaborately spoken on today's topic, and you had taken us from the historical background of formation of Satyashodhak Samaj, how it was built up, and what was the historical developments before 1873. And you had correlated all our social forefathers movement to the present situation, and you had critically analyzed not only analyzed but given the solutions also, which already our forefathers had thought of. They were really a great visionary, and they had given us the right path on which we have to walk or we have to follow. This was a very informative talk, and it was a very with examples. You had given the entire information in a very systematic way. I hope all the viewers had got the information in one proper channel, and they will definitely utilize or use this information in spreading the news or spreading this particular information in particular aspect, so that the common man also will come to know what is the current situation today and how our forefathers thought of overcoming this current situation. Definitely, there are various ways in looking after our problems, and if the intellectual class thinks in particular direction, definitely he will get away. So it was a very informative talk, and on behalf of MNT News Network, I am really thankful to you for sparing your valuable time with us and giving such a wonderful and informative information to our viewers. Again, in future, we'll definitely be in touch with you and invite you on different topics, and hope you will again come and guide us on different topics. Thank
Thank
you
you.
very much for joining today, and definitely it was a very good talk. Thank you. Jai Bhim, Jai Mulasi, and
Jai Bhim, Jai
Jai
Mool
Bharat.
Nivasi, Jai Jyoti.
Yeah. So it was a very informative talk, and yeah, Mangesh have given a very right information as far as the Satyashodhak movement is considered. And this video will be there in this particular link, and I hope you all will pass on this information to all the viewers within your circle. Tomorrow again we will meet at 8:30, and tomorrow we are going to discuss again one important topic, that is डॉक्टर बाबा साहब अम्बेडकर द्वारा मूल निवासी डॉक्टर इंजीनियर और वकीलों से अपेक्षाएं और वर्तमान स्थिति. So what Dr. Baba Saheb Ambedkar expected from the doctors, engineers, and advocates, that expectations we are going to discuss along with the present scenario or present situation. And speakers on this particular topic are Engineer Nilima Bhatkar, Dr. Munesh Kumar, and Mulyavasi Advocate Vinayak Shah, who are going to discuss on this particular topic. So be there at 8:30 tomorrow, and again we will welcome you tomorrow at 8:30. Thank you very much for listening to for today's program, and we will be there at, tomorrow at 8:30. Thank you very much. Jai Bhim, Jai Mulyavasi, Jai Samvidhan, Jai Bharat.